going to start off with just a little bit of housekeeping. There was a little bit of a misunderstanding. This was my first book launch party ever, and I mistakenly thought that we were actually going to be launching a book. So I might have given you some of you that impression, and so there will be no rocketry. I apologize. Several months ago, on my news feed on Facebook, these essays started showing up about one particular person's experience with junior tennis. And I was instantly captivated. It was right up my alley as a tennis parent and as a tennis player and living in the South Bay. I just was drawn to it, and so much so that I actually reached out to Barry and said, hey, this is amazing, inspirational stuff. You should keep writing. Little did I know that people from all over the country were doing the same thing, and from other countries even, telling Barry, wow, this is powerful stuff, and Barry sent me a nice message back, and we got together a couple of times, and we played tennis a couple of times, and just by talking with him and through maybe a little bit of osmosis and stuff, my relationship with my own son started to improve because I really learned from and benefited from the experience that Barry had. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you tonight my friend and author of First in the Field of Two, which is a fantastic book, Mr. Barry Buss with two S's. Thank you guys for coming. Wow, wish I had a teleprompter. A lot better. Can I just read something? Thank you guys so much for coming here tonight. It's really important for me. I want to thank the Jack Kramer Club for hosting here. It's really important. This is ground zero for junior tennis. It's probably the most famous tennis club in the whole world for most quality players, and you can come out of this area at any time. And it's just really, really grateful when I think back on my career as playing, to have been able to play here and be a part of a generation. Probably would never be anything like that again. And this is really neat to be able to do this here. I'm really honored to be able to do this here. I want to thank a few people here first and foremost before I get going. First of all, I want to clarify one thing here. I'm 10 months sober tonight. And none of this would be happening if that wasn't going on in my life. And I want to make sure that I keep that first and foremost as I go forward here. A lot of people here from that part of my life. Out of respect for their anonymity, I'll let them remain that way. But I just want to make sure I just let them know that I'm really so glad that they're here for me now, and were there for me then, during the leaner times. And I want to thank you guys for that. Let's see. I'm not very organized, so bear with me. I have so much history with you people here. I know it's amazing. Some of you I've known for 5 minutes, some of you I've known for 35 years. And it's just incredible to look out here and just see your whole life. You know, there's so much history and so close to so many of you people at so many different times. And it's just really, really rewarding that you guys are here tonight for me. I want to tell a couple stories here just about how the whole thing came about in the first place, the idea to do this, and then the actual process of writing it, and then really what it's all about. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. We've got 10 more minutes. It was over Easter break in 2011. I was in Palm Springs just doing a film shoot with a client of mine, and we're at a club out there. And a couple courts away, we saw a bunch of colorful young kids out there just smashing balls all over the place, and little did we know the Easter Bowl was going on, the National Junior Easter Bowl. So after we finished our little film shoot thing, I walked up to the tournament desk, and I was like, had this little weird feeling in my stomach. It's been my whole childhood walking up to these tournament desks. And on the side, at the pro shop, there was these giant poster board draw sheets, and parents and kids were all frantic and doing their thing. And so I walked up to the draw sheets, and I just got this little knot in my stomach. I go, wow, this is interesting, And I was thinking, I've been doing this a long time. I'm kind of old now. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the guys that I grew up playing tennis with had kids playing in this tournament now. And so I went up there and I started looking for names. And out of the 18s and the 16s and the 14s, I recognized one name. It was a guy named Steislinger that I played Davis Cup with. And I thought, God, that's odd. I think if anybody, Jonathan, how are you? Anybody should know, if anybody should know how to raise a kid into an elite junior tennis player, it would be the people that live that experience. And so it was really, really fascinating to me. I remember when I drove home with my client, I was thinking, I'm going to look into that a little bit.
and stuff. So I got back, it was in the spring of 2011, one of my closest friends from growing up was former tour player Kelly Jones, and we got into communicating about junior tennis development and stuff, and it turned out we had a lot of the same ideas about a lot of the same things, and we got to talking, and he had always wanted to write a book about that, and he'd heard that I did a little writing. So before we knew it, I was on a plane back to Florida and to work on basically writing a book on a how-to on junior tennis and junior tennis parenting. So we got to Florida, and for a week we kind of sequestered ourselves in coffee shops all throughout Tampa, and we just started hashing out every possible little idea that you could go over, every topic about what is success and communication and education and motivation and all these different coaching and all the important aspects of developing a young, talented tennis player. And as we shared our experiences as coaches, and we also shared our experiences as players too. And what was becoming really interesting is as we were talking about, he would share his stories and I would share my story. It really wasn't, everything was coming out of my story was how not to do it. And it was really, it was really kind of eerie, It's like, I never had a coach, I never had, it's just, all the different things that, and it's just so many aspects of it. If you want to develop a talented, good tennis player, you wouldn't have done it my way, So we collected a whole bunch of information, and the whole book idea kind of morphed into kind of developing a consulting company for junior tennis and junior tennis families. And when I flew home, I was really excited about looking into the topic a lot further. So when I got home, I started reaching out to a lot of my friends that I grew up playing with and stuff. And I was asking, how come you guys don't? How come y'all have kids? How come your kids aren't playing? And the prevailing answer I got from so many of them was, I would never put my kid through that. And that really stuck with me because it was like, what was that they were talking about? I looked into that. I was like, I have to find out what that is. So I started looking into it. Kelly and I were doing our thing, and I was getting all agitated about reliving all my past experiences and going over, as we kept talking about it. And it really wasn't working out. You could tell I wasn't really ready to do this. I was just kind of just going through a lot of stuff, trying to relive all that stuff. And it came down to, push came to shove time for us, and we took a job coaching college tennis, and I kept asking, I go, what should I do with all this information? I had all these studies, I've been doing all this work on this thing, and he kind of paused, and he wouldn't answer me, and I go, what should I do with this? And he finally goes, you need to tell your story. And that was in the spring of 2011, and I wasn't ready to do it. I wasn't in a place to really go through all that stuff again. It was bothering me to go through it, so I kind of shelved it. So fast forward to the U.S. Open of 2012 last year, and a couple things were happening just in the tournament itself. Andy Roddick announced his retirement, and I remember just seeing that, and there was a lot of hoopla about his family and everyone coming there, and all the interviews they were doing, how supportive they were. And I was thinking, that's a family that did it right. They could just see they were there from his first ball, and they were going to be there to his last ball, and it was just a really unconditional support for him in his tennis experience. And it was really rewarding. I think he even went so far as to say, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my life, but he goes, I know I'm not afraid of what I come home to. And that really stuck with me because, a lot of kids I grew up with playing, and myself included, we were afraid of what we came home to. And that really stuck with me. And then that night he played the major match on the featured court with this guy, Bernard Tomic. And you could just tell, they kept panning the camera back and forth to the Tomic box and then the Roddick box, which was so supportive. And Mr. Tomic had this glare on his face, he's this big, kind of little burly guy, just really angry. And the kid Tomic couldn't perform. He was under the lights there, and he just looked scared, when he was playing. And I just remember thinking, it's not safe for him. I don't think it's a safe place for him to lose and to come home. And I remember that really sticking with me. So I wrote an essay about it. I just kind of scrambled something together to do what I do. I was just kind of posting on the social media and on Facebook, and it was really warmly received. And I said, wow, that's interesting. I didn't really think much of it. And then the next day there was a conversation going on online about Junior Davis Cup, which is something about bringing it back. And so I wrote another essay about my experiences with there, and then that was really warmly received too. I was thinking, okay, it's kind of cool. It's 2 in a row, and I was feeling healthy, and I was feeling. Writers need readers, so let's get some readers. And then I fired out another one about cheating, and all of a sudden that one was really warmly received. It was kind of really took off. And so I had no plan to write the book. This was in September, and I just was sitting there and I was thinking, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could just kind of sit still for a little while. I didn't have a lot going on, and maybe I just kind of sit with this thing. Maybe I could power this thing out. So lo and behold, as Wade was saying, I just started firing these things out in the month of September, one a day. I was just writing them on an old email program on a rickety old computer and just firing them up there every single day and just kind of consuming myself with it. I pretty much locked myself in a room, wasn't teaching much, and I just pretty much relived every miserable childhood experience I ever had. And then some. But it was, well, just my experience as a tennis player growing up, because it was a unique, it was just a difficult thing. Something I'd always wanted to write books before, but I could never sit still long enough to write this, and it was painful stuff to go over. So then as I started writing it, as Wade was saying, I was getting all the support from all over the place, and people were just coming out of the woodwork saying, you're telling my story, and it became apparent to me that I was touching a nerve for a lot of kids who had shared that similar growing up experience. It's such a unique experience to grow up as a high-level competitive tennis player. It's something that other team sports. It's not a seasonal thing. This is an all-in endeavor. You got to be all in from a very young age, and all families have to be into. And it's consuming economically, financially, emotionally. Please turn off your cell device. So anyways, I started writing this thing, and all of a sudden, the vision came to me. And obviously, I'm 48, and I'm writing a memoir, so there's a lot of years to cover there. So I said, how do I cut this thing? I've been writing this thing still now. How do I wrap this thing up? And it kind of came to me, and I figured, okay, if I can sit with this for about 3 more weeks, I could do this. I kind of timed it out. And then we got an idea, well, I got a book here. If I can just sit still with this long enough and have the courage to do this stuff. And then we got into the Kickstarter program, and so we started raising money for fundraising. And I want to stop here and just point out, thank all of the people who were involved in that. Jimmy, Dan, yourself, thank you so much. Fred, Scott, all you guys, Jonathan. Sorry, your computer was stuck with that 0. Bridget, and all the people who are Cecilia, thank you guys so much for helping out me there. And right in the middle of it, as I was doing it, I got a random email from this lovely Miss Madeline here, who was actually part of the later part of my story, my UC Irvine days, and she just sent me an email. She goes, "What are you doing?" And I go, "I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing." She goes, "This is really good." She goes, "It's really wet. We got to let it dry out a little bit, but it's really good." I go, "Yeah, listen, help." She goes, "Do you need some help?" And I go, "Yeah, I really do." She goes, she had edited a book before. And I go, "Can I just send this stuff over to you?" And she goes, "Please." And I just started firing essays over to her, and I called her, nicknamed her the Unpunctuator. For those who have read my dot, dot, dot. You're trying to make Morse code cool again. So she sat with it, and then she was really connecting with it herself, and just the childhood parts of it. So next thing I know, I've got a whole bunch of essays there all done, and she's cleaning them up as best she can, and I've been close with Dr. Alan Fox, a pretty esteemed tennis person. I asked him if he'd be interested in writing a foreword to it, and he did, and he wrote a really, really wonderful foreword to it. And then it came time to get this thing published, and we raised our money through the Kickstarter program, which was wonderful, and people were so generous. People I'd never met before were putting money into this thing and really support. It's such an incredible feeling when people support what you're doing like that. Especially when I have no idea what I'm doing as a writer, honestly, just winging it. But and then it came time to publish it, and then where's Gail? There she is, my lifetime friend Gail here. So it's so important to have wonderful friends. It's so important to have at least one perfectionist friend. So I sent it over to her, and I said it'll probably just take her 3 or 4 hours to put this thing out. 3 or 4 days. Later she's just cursing me. She's like, "This thing's a mess. You got to fix it up." So she sat with it and designed the cover, and got the necessary programs to make the thing look like a book. And got it all formatted for me, and sent it back, and it's come in this completed form. And then it's just a couple clicks later. It's amazing what you do on your personal computer, and there you have it. It came out as a book. So it's basically 3 months from the first word to the final delivery. Now I have a house full of books. This thing doesn't pan out well, I can make a nice little house. But so far so good. It's been very warmly received. Obviously I have a lot to learn about promoting the book. But then a lot of, after that, it came, the important thing is where do I go from here with this? told a story on many levels, and I just want to talk a little bit about what it's all about. It's about a lot of things. If I was at the Betty Ford Center, I'd probably talk about recovery. If I was at a child abuse center, I'd be talking about dealing with child anger or something like that. I'm at the Jack Kramer Club here, so I want to talk about tennis. Tennis was really it's always been the kind of the soundtrack to my life. It's always been going on at some point, from my earliest memories and, to my profession now. All of my friends here, almost all of them are some way either clients, former players, professionals. It's always been in the equation for me. One thing I just want to kind of, when I try to figure out what this thing's about, I have a new student now. He's a young boy, and I ask him 3 questions when I see him. I ask him, how you feeling? And he says, fine. And I go, good. How you playing? He goes, good. And I go, well, is anything giving you any trouble? He says, no, let's play. And so before you know, we're out in the court. He's running around all, just so full of energy. And then 10 minutes later, something's hurting, and he can't hit a forehand, and he's just making a mess of the place, And I got to thinking, what I really try to communicate in this book here is this junior tennis experience. We can't communicate what's going on with us, and we don't have the emotional or the cognitive knowledge or maturity to actually explain what we're feeling and what we're going through. And I think it's important as a coach and a parent, as ambassadors of the sport, that we have a responsibility to understand that they're not going to be able to tell us what's happening with them. And it's going to start manifesting in all kinds of behaviors and red flags and recurring episodes, whether it be cheating or tantrums or tanking or, later on for myself from substance abuse and other stuff like that. And it's just so important that it's difficult if you're going to be a parent or a coach in this sport to understand the terrain that you're putting these kids in. And I just don't think that's really well understood in our sport. I think we have the knowledge now, but it's just not being applied properly. I don't think kids are wired to go through that much fear and pressure and anxiety and just strain and elation and disappointment every single day. From 9, 10, you got to be all in this sport from such a young age to have any chance of being successful at it. And I just don't think there's anything. There's so much talk about developing tennis players and not developing good tennis people. And we've got to develop these kids first. And the greatest player in the world is even a support fractured kid. And unfortunately, I grew up in the sport around here, and a lot of myself, not just my own story. My story is a little extreme in that regard, but a lot of the people I grew up with didn't do so well. And I don't indict tennis community culture. We cut forward that completely, but I don't give it a free pass either. And I just think it's something that we could do better at as coaches and parents. And it's all just about education. It's about just learning what are we doing? What are we putting our kids into? And I come back to that with my friends who didn't put their kids into tennis, and I wouldn't put them through that. If they're not putting their kids in tennis, who's leading this next generation of kids? Where are they supposed to know what to do? Because it's not out there. And I think what I've tried to do in this book is to get that out there. That this is what a kid's going through, and they're not going to be able to tell you that. Okay, and maybe my story's a little extreme. Don't look for the differences. Look for the similarities. Because in my story is a lot of other people's story, and I really try to communicate that as best I could. So I think that's kind of what it's about. So I just, I'm just overwhelmed with the support from all you people. I guess I'm just so touched that all you guys came out to support me or not. I can't believe I got to do this without crying too. Thank you so much.
There's plenty of wine. Great wine. Please, I don't want to take that one.
Barry, are the rights for the feature film available?
I have a question.
Yes, questions, quick Q&A.
If you were raised better, would you have won 36 matches?
The older I get, the more matches I won. Right? Tell my story.
I thought you did pretty well.
39. I love Bill. Every time I go out socially with Bill would introduce me. Hey, this is Barry Bussey, UCLA record holder. He won 97 matches in a row. There were 103 history match where no one's even come close. Most matches ever in history.
Instead of 35 in a row, it would have been 50 in a row.
Barry, are you going to keep writing?
Yes, I am. Actually, that's a good question. Yeah. One of the hard things about doing this, obviously, doing a memoir, obviously, I didn't want to write the rest of my life, and so I was able to cut this off at 21. I left this some space there. Yeah, no, I can't wait to do some more. I really learned how to do it. I know I can do it now. As I said, a writer's nothing without readers. I have people that are interested in what I'm saying. That means a lot to me, and I've got a lot of ideas. Yeah, I got some other ideas I want to do. So, the most certainly, yeah. The thing I don't know anything about. I only know so many people here in the South Bay. I'm trying to sell this book, and hopefully, eventually, it'll get picked up by a publisher and get some marketing and promotion out into the country and so forth. But yeah, no, I'm definitely going to write some more. Thanks. I guess I'll take questions. Where's Wade? What's the?
I have a question.
Yeah,
Are we going to cut that cake, or what's
Don't eat my face, okay? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Yeah, awesome.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you.